Welcome to another episode of The Brand Called You, a podcast and podcast show that brings you leadership lessons, knowledge, experience, and wisdom from thousands of successful individuals from around the world. I'm your host, Ashutosh Garg, and today I'm delighted and privileged to welcome a very, very accomplished and senior corporate leader from Germany, Silvia Wiesner. Silvia, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Silvia is the managing director of Unilever. She was recognized by the World Economic Forum as a young global leader. She's an executive committee member of European Women on Boards, and she's been nominated as the Personality of the Year for the Belgian FMCG retail industry. My goodness, you seem to have accomplished everything at such an early age. Congratulations. Sylvia,
I will be blushing, just to be clear.
But Sylvia, before we get into branding, I want to ask you about your own amazing journey. Tell me about what has gone into reaching right to the very top.
So it's been a very flattering start, I have to say, of this podcast. I think it's been just a gradual development, right? I think it was not something that was planned out long in advance. And I would also pride myself as being a rather humble person and someone who was never pushed to do anything. I think my choices were always my choices. They were not my parents' advice, for instance. I was raised, in a very loving environment, very supportive. And things just, they developed nicely. Opportunities came up and I decided to grab them. To just give you one example, maybe. During my very first marketing lecture at university, I got to know Unilever via a brand manager showing up to give a guest lecture. And I was thinking, oh, nice. If I could do exactly that job one day, that would be terrific. And then, it happened like this. And also not to give the impression that it was just coincidence and just happening like this. I think sometimes you also need to make some smart decisions. For instance, the move from marketing to sales or later on into general management. Yes, I think those were just very good decisions on my own end. Yeah. It was not a master plan, but it was about regularly taking stock and understanding whether or not I was in the place I wanted to be. And if not, what might be the next reasonable step.
Fascinating. And what would you say is your leadership style?
Oh, that's a good one. I think it starts by believing that leadership is not about yourself. Leadership is about the others. It's about being in service of others. It starts with the question of, how can I support you? And I very much believe into the findings of positive psychology, and that's why I'm a supporter and an advocate for positive leadership, which is all about creating, facilitating, fueling positive emotions among your team members, and being very much strength-focused, strength-based management, in the belief that this leads to the better well-being of your team members, of the individuals, and as a result, also better well-being of your organization. So really seeing that very much interlinked. And then there is lots of different angles to use, from creating meaning, making it meaningful to be where you currently are, explaining the bigger picture, making it clear what the individual's role is, allowing people to discover their own purpose. It's about nurturing relationships in the work environment. It's about showing up, being clear that you are seeing someone you want to support, you want to use anything from empowerment to actually enabling them. And of course, also it's about celebrating successes. It's about appreciating the accomplishment. And probably if you would really just sum it up, it's about, well, actually inviting the heart to work as well, in addition to using your head, not being scared of that, and being an EQ plus IQ leader instead of just being an IQ leader, which I think today in this world, it's just not going to do the job.
Well said. Thank you. What a great response. So, Silvia, let's now talk branding. I mean, Unilever is the ultimate organization for branding. And you did mention that you moved from marketing to sales and then to general management. Let me start by asking you, what goes into building a successful brand?
that's not that easy, to begin
I
with.
know.
So
I
I think I
agree.
need to touch a couple of topics.
Yeah.
But I would say the first bit is clearly the clarity on the core. So what is really at the heart of your brand and its offering? What's your vision? What's your purpose? What are your core values? So essentially the what, the why, and the how that is relevant in any setting. And then I think you clearly need to define your value proposition. What value does your organization provide to customers that no one else can, ideally? And therefore, how do you want to be perceived in the marketplace? What's your positioning? So that would be my number one, all about the core.
Correct.
Then I think secondly, you kind of easily move on to the topic of content. How do you bring your brand to life? The content is the vehicle to achieve this. And good content allows you to interact with your community. You want to be their ally. You want to support them. You want to build the engagement. So that's number two. Then I think number three, and I'm staying with the C's for now, I notice, it's consistency. So I think consistent branding is what makes it clear to your customer what they can expect from you. It's about you speaking with one voice, with one consistent voice, regardless of what department you belong to or what channel you're currently using. And of course, this is also what actually breeds trust in the end. And that, for instance, would be a great example in that space. Having started back in 2004 already with the campaign for Real Beauty, and now this year, the latest campaign being about the real beauty in the virtual world. So going into the metaverse, but you can see this is consistent with what was already done back in 2004. So that's great.
That's it.
And then I think the fourth pillar would be community, really creating a space with like-minded customers and like-minded employees. So I think if you're clear about your values, you are attracting the right people, be it your customers, be it your employees, or also your partners. And that's what works out really well. And then I think the last pillar that I definitely need to mention as someone who spends so much time at Unilever, so at a purpose-led company, it is purpose. It's about the awareness of the impact you might have, the influence, the power you have to influence society and culture, and probably just the belief that we will win with our brands by being a force for good.
Well said. And when I look at brands of Unilever, they have survived years and years and years. And I've often said brands are like living beings. They're like the children, need to be constantly nurtured. What does Unilever do so well that its brands seem to just carry on for 100 years, while others come and splurge huge sums of money? The brands show up suddenly and then they die.
Oh, good question. Probably three pillars to mention. So one would be innovation. The other one would be purpose. And I'll just talk a bit more about that one. And then the third one is people that really need to bring it together.
Correct.
So first, you need to constantly innovate, right? It's already what Peter Drucker said.
Correct.
Innovate or die. Of course, your business, not yourself, but it's at the heart of everything. You need to innovate boldly for people and for the planet. And also your brand should be built on advanced science. There should be functionally superior products. Or you should even be willing to make your existing business model obsolete by innovating. And I think it also requires a certain outside perspective, being open to collaborate with others, because essentially there's no way that all the smartest people in the world will just be working for you. That's just, that's not doable. And in a way, you could also say it's about understanding that the future has been made, but not yet scaled. So that's why venture out, get the outside perspective in.
Fantastic.
When innovating.
Thank you. Wonderful. Thank you. And you just spoke
I could just
about
add a bit more maybe on the
No, go ahead.
Just please. A bit more maybe on the purpose bit, where I really think that today our consumers are telling us they want us to stand up and speak up. It's 74% of consumers globally who are saying brands need to take a stand. I think that's one essential point. At the same time, purpose is more like the icing on the cake. Well, it's not the cake itself. That's something that Hanneke Faber, the president of nutrition at Unilever, recently said. You cannot leave product and innovation aside. The excess depends also on choosing the right icing and icing a purpose that is true to the truth and the category benefits. And then I think the last one is really that you need to have the teams who are embracing all of what I've just said.
Correct.
You need to have team members who get very, very close to consumers, who really get on the front line, who are going beyond the stereotypes, who are really spending time getting the consumer intimacy. And that's why, for instance, we are encouraging everyone to spend a minimum of 100 hours every year with actual consumers, not the PowerPoint summaries of consumers.
Wow, that's fantastic. And, Silvia, you just a few minutes ago also spoke about the metaverse. So I want to come to technology, social media, and brands.
Yeah.
From the time when I was doing all these things 45 years ago, marketing, branding was completely different. I want to get your perspective that given the proliferation of digital platforms, social media, what do brand managers need to do to succeed?
So maybe let's start by saying, let's not feel overwhelmed. Let's not think that, it's more complex than it actually is. I think there is also, in the digital world, there are no big secrets.
Correct.
A lot is just the basic marketing. It's basic sales knowledge. It's the basic media principles. And the consumer is the deciding factor. So don't get stuck in, how do I do this? Then secondly, I think it's about understanding that also some relevant general leadership beliefs to hold true, regardless of what channel you're talking about. And one would be bold, be boldly choiceful. For me, this is also in digital, you need to have an approach that's about core plus more. So you do the basics and you do the pilots, and in both, execution trumps all. And I think if you focus on the basics, you need to make them brilliant, such as content that really needs to be engaging, high quality, needs to be accessible. You need to invest in media across the whole end-to-end consumer journey. And I know from own experience, your team members might think, okay, they are asking us to focus so much time on the unglamorous stuff. Yes. But this is what actually defines whether or not your consumer finds you, whether or not they are able to make a sale. So you need to focus on the right naming, on the right hero images. If that's not in place, or if you don't have the stock matching, really coming in, you don't do the proper forecasting, you're not going to be successful. And then, of course, you should still have time to do more, to do the pilots, to do the experimenting, which can be fun. But again, be focused. Just don't do it for the sake of doing it. And I think lastly, it's on the organizational bit. It's about understanding that essentially it's the end of the offline organization. I think today there is no role that can only be offline focused. You need to think about the convergence of channels. You need to upskill yourselves. You need to upskill your teams, while at the same time getting outside perspective in. You need to hire for the new skills, and you need to make sure that everybody's OKRs are reflective of how the world is developing further.
Well said. The other aspect I wanted to get your perspective was on communication. 40 years ago, there were full page ads, there were big billboards, there were 3-minute films that were presented in cinema halls, etc. Today, everything is a handheld device, and its TikTok is 10 seconds. What is going into making the communication even faster than the elevator pitch?
That's a good one. So I think a bit, probably 5-6 years ago, we were saying you need to be mobile first when you approach any communication campaigns. You're not developing a TV asset, maybe 30 seconds, and then you're just trying to chop it down to make it work for a little snippet of social media communication. That's not how it works.
Yeah.
I think today we're actually then one step further, and it's about designing for digital commerce in the first place. Now, how does that work out? I think it's by, again, being on the front line, by ensuring you experience firsthand yourself, about really understanding the consumer journey and understand what the main pain points are.
Correct.
And of course, that includes something like being very much aware that we're all holding our phones and just having the scrolling behavior. So what can I do to actually capture the attention? I think that's one angle. A second aspect, which feels maybe different or even the opposite, is the time for one-way communication. That's long gone already, right? So now it's two-way communication. You want to have proper interaction, or actually getting one step further, we are turning consumers into the generators, the content generators. And now consumers are just showing up and saying, I want to own this space. You are the ones who should offer me the platform. So that totally turns around the setup and also the roles that you are taking as brands or as consumers. There is no such thing as a consumer anymore, maybe.
Correct. And, you also spoke a little bit about the metaverse. I wanted to get your perspective. Big brands and big organizations like yours are investing a lot of money in buying real estate in the metaverse. I'd love to get your thoughts and perspectives on how do you see the metaverse being used for brands and sales?
Yeah. So probably the first thing to acknowledge is it's totally okay that we're all still confused and maybe a bit scared. Consumers, users, brands, creators, all at the same time. It's a space that's just being created.
Correct.
Good thing is it is being created. So we can have an active role in it, not just a passive role. I think right now there's an invitation to just experiment, do your pilots. And I would really recommend for most brands that can afford it, even in a challenging overall economy, to get your own first-hand experience, because otherwise you will only be repeating what others are telling you, right? So you've got to get out there. And I think there are nice first examples out there of meaningful activities in the metaverse. And what do I mean by meaningful? I mean, for instance, contributions to creating a space that's going to be more diverse and more inclusive than the other worlds we are currently operating in. So ask your question, link to your brand purpose. So it should be truthful. It should be close to your core. What could be your meaningful contribution to how we are currently building the metaverse? So then you're not just jumping on something, you're actually still in the creative phase. And also from Unilever, there are a couple of beautiful examples, such as from DAF, where it's all about making sure that we are creating a space where more people feel welcome, where they really feel it's an inclusive space where they can express their true selves, and just give it a try and be co-creators. I think that's probably my call to action.
Well said. I've got time for two more questions. So my next question to you, Silvia, is on this whole aspect of celebrity endorsements. From big sports stars to big film stars, television stars. There's a whole new breed now of influencers and micro-influencers. I'd love to get your perspective as someone who's not just been in branding and sales, but now is in general management. How are micro-influencers and influencers affecting consumer minds, and how are they going to change or make brands listen to them?
Super question. Again, I would say it's not that different from what we have done for the past decades. I think, there's so much analogies versus what we've already done. Word of mouth, is coming to my mind when you are talking about micro-influence. It's just about the credibility. I think as a brand, it again starts with being very clear about your core, your offering, your value proposition, your why. And then you want to be clear about your objectives. So if you have those two, then I think it guides you towards choosing the right endorsements and the right endorsers. And you should make decisions for real value, not just for PR value. And you should be aware that it's borrowed credibility. Of course, that one can be of help. And then also, of course, because we are spending so much time online, so it can work very well, but you need to ensure that there is enough overlap in terms of values. There's also a risk attached to it, obviously. And I think it pays off the most if you can come up with a long-term relationship.
Right.
One-offs, I personally think it's not really worth it.
Very interesting. And my last question to you, Silvia, and this is for the many, many people who will listen to our conversation. Based on your own amazing journey, and you've been very modest about it when you were talking about your journey, and all your experience of brands, what would you say are 3 lessons you would want our viewers and listeners to take away from your own learnings and from your own journey?
Okay. Let's see where to zoom in on. Probably the first one is what I already said in a similar way. Be bold. Be bold in your objectives, in your conversations with yourselves, with your colleagues. Be bold in your decision making and have trust and confidence in yourself. And then you just go, right? Take the decision and go. That would be number 1, this boldness. Secondly, I would say surround yourself with the best people in a certain field, and also the best people that can lift you up. I think today, one essential skill is also having the stamina, pushing through, especially when you're in an inflationary environment, when a recession is looming. Surround yourself with people that can lift you up.
Correct.
And number 3, coming back to one of your most recent questions, I truly believe there's never been a better time than now to be in marketing. We're again shaping the future, be it in Web3, be it in Metaverse, or in creating this truly inclusive advertising. Just have fun with it, feel the responsibility, but also see this benefit of being a creator. That should be very, very satisfying.
Very interesting. And on that note, Silvia, and your 3 amazing lessons: be bold in your objectives and decision making. Surround yourself with not just good people, but people who will uplift you. I love that word. And your third one is, this is possibly the best time to be in marketing. I mean, look at all the stuff that is going on and immerse yourself to learn as much as you can. Thank you so much for speaking to me. Thank you for talking to me about your amazing journey. Thank you for talking to me about branding, technology, customer insights, and also about the social media and a whole lot of other things. Thank you again. Good luck for your trip to Davos. And thank you for speaking to me.
Thank you so much. It was a real pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to the Brand Called You videocast and podcast, a platform that brings you knowledge, experience, and wisdom of hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. Do visit our website, www.tbcy.in, to watch and listen to the stories of many more individuals. You can also follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just search for The Brand Called You.